My name's Monica Peak. I am an assistant professor of medicine at the University of Chicago, and I'm also the associate director for the Chicago Center for Diabetes Translation Research.
Now, how did you first hear about Vanderbilt?
You know, I was born and raised in Tennessee, so I'd always known about Vanderbilt. And I actually remember seeing them. So I was in Knoxville, Vanderbilt's in Nashville. The black students were protesting, and I saw it on TV from my home, and I thought, I want to be a part of that. Like, they're doing great stuff. They're so brave. I just really looked up to the students, and I said, that's where I want to go. So I looked around at a lot of places. My dad drove me around to visit lots of colleges. I fell in love with Spelman, but ultimately I wanted to be part of some of the activity and the energy that was happening at Vanderbilt.
You remember what they were protesting about tennis?
I know, they were always protesting about something. I think it was the BSA manifesto. And so the students were wearing black armbands and had a list of demands from the university about the number of black students they wanted to see there on campus, the number of black faculty, just other opportunities to make the campus more diverse and more welcoming to the students that were there.
What were some of the significant events or things that happened on campus during your time there?
Yeah, so one of the things that ended up taking up a large amount of my emotional and intellectual space my senior year was when Tiger Woods, who's still famous, was on a PGA tour, and one of the golf courses was at a country club that didn't allow black people in the South. And the man who was the president of the country club was on Vanderbilt's board. And that coincided with the summer right before I started my senior year as the Black Student Alliance president. So I remember being awoken by some local news channel like telling me about this and asking what the BSA position was about this. And that sort of started a year-long protest to not only try and have the university hold our board president accountable for his actions, but to also re-heighten the awareness about issues for students of color, particularly black students on campus, and what messages like that meant to Vanderbilt as far as their ability to recruit other minorities, to keep and retain the ones that were here, and just to reopen the discussion about what it means to be a black person at Vanderbilt and how the university can be supportive and not dismissive.
What in the hell was that? What ultimately came out of that? And tell me some of what you guys did.
Yeah, so we had another protest. So ironically, 4 years after I'd seen the kids on TV, that I was on TV doing the same thing. So having another sit-in, we had actually worked really closely with other students at Tennessee State University and Fisk University, just trying to get a lot of student alignment and support for programs. So Tennessee State had a major sit-in that year also, because that's it was a predominantly black school. It is a predominantly black school, but not a historically black school. And so they were going through some transitions about whether or not they were going to stay black or integrate and become, the University of Tennessee in Nashville. And so we were supportive of them. Fisk was having issues, and so when we were having our protest, we had support from students off campus who we actually held a press conference at either Tennessee State or Fisk, I think at Tennessee State, with all the student leaders about Vanderbilt's situation. So actually went off campus to meet with other black student leaders about what was happening at Vanderbilt. We had a sit-in and sort of crashed the board meeting where Hall Thompson, I still remember his name, was present, and demanded that our voices be heard. So we had had a series of meetings with the chancellor and the vice chancellor about this issue, and really were not making significant progress. And so we decided to invite ourselves to the board meeting. It was right sort of near the end of the year, and as a result of that, we did actually allow they did actually allow our voice to be heard. We were invited in, after we'd been standing outside for hours chanting and protesting, invited in to talk to the board and make our case. And they agreed to take it up as a subcommittee and to really think about it. Ultimately, he was not released from the board, which is what our request was, that Hall Thompson not be allowed to continue as a board member. Ultimately, the decision was made that he was not going to be dismissed, but that had been a year of op-ed pieces, both on campus and off. My mother, who I mentioned, was in development. She was at Michigan State some of her colleagues had heard about it and was like, what is your daughter doing down at Vanderbilt? You know, and so it was a national discussion about not only what was happening at Vanderbilt, but the implications of people who are affiliated with the university and their role as ambassadors more broadly through the nation. And what are we saying when our board members are out doing things that are, you know, perpetuating legacies of injustice and racial segregation?
How would you describe your mood or feeling when you reflect back on your general Vanderbilt experience?
Yeah. Overall, I am very glad that I went to Vanderbilt for several reasons. One, I had a wonderful experience there. I made friends that are lifelong that I wouldn't have made if I hadn't been there. The faculty were amazing. It was a beautiful campus. I just had a great time. And even the challenges, and there were significant challenges being a black person at Vanderbilt, those helped forge my leadership skills, my tenacity, things that I have to continue to draw upon in my day-to-day work. So issues of being a woman of color in academic medicine still are ones that weren't new when I was a college student, but certainly are not new now. And so being able to hone my resilience and to draw upon others for resources, to learn to find my voice and to be confident in myself, those are things, skills that I really polished when I was at Vanderbilt. And so for that, I'm thankful.
Now, how would you say you changed in your time at Vanderbilt, looking at freshman year Monica versus senior year Monica?
Yeah, so I, again, sort of despite the fact that I had come from a predominantly white suburb upbringing where there was a lot of racism within my high school and my neighborhood, I decided that I was going to come to Vanderbilt with an open heart and an open mind, and spent probably the first 6 months of my freshman year trying to openly engage in all students. So African Americans, well, those were easy, but also really trying to interact with white students. And so I would, if someone was sitting by themselves at the lunch table, I would come up and say, "Hi, I'm Monica. Would you mind if I joined you?" And, you know, just wave to everyone on campus. And at the end of that 6 months, I realized that this was not going to be a sustainable strategy. That I was not getting the love back that I was trying to project. And in particular, my freshman year, joining a sorority is a big deal on Vanderbilt's campus. I think probably more so than a lot of universities. And so there was a lot of social pressure to only be seen with the right kind of people as you were pledging your freshman year. And so a lot of the people who were in my dorm or who were initially friendly suddenly stopped speaking to me on campus. When I would see them, you know, they would somehow not see me right in front of them. And so between my freshman year, when I, despite all of my lifelong experiences, despite my father being a black history professor and me knowing about the racism in America, really wanted to come to Vanderbilt with a clean slate and put my best foot forward to, you know, engage with everybody. And I learned that Vanderbilt was not ready for that. And so, you know, and then just because of some of the work that I was doing with the Black Student Alliance, I got hate mail from the Klan. You know, I was like, "You guys are still around?" Sending letters to people. Are you kidding? At some point, someone had, because again, we were asking for Hall Thompson's resignation, papered the campus with flyers saying, "Monica Peak, why don't you resign?" You know, so I'm going to class and like I see all these brightly colored flyers and they've got my name on them. And, you know, so there's pushback from students and other people in the community. Some of the people who contacted my mother and like, "Oh, what's your daughter doing?" were like, "Really, can you tell her to be quiet?" That's why they were calling. "Can you make her shut up?" And so that changed my opinion of what my potential would be as far as being able to engage with the broader community. And you know, I do work now I'm a diabetes researcher, but a lot of my work has to do with how patients interact with providers in the health system through the lens of race and what it means to perceive discrimination, to experience discrimination, and how that impacts people's health and contributes to some of the health disparities that we see in this country. So I will say that I was a different person. I was a stronger person. I was a better person. I was certainly a smarter person than I was when I left Vanderbilt than when I came in. But I was also more hardened about the world than I was when I came in.